hello viewers, and let's all give Professor McKenzie a big welcome to WBC, the World News Company. Thanks, aye, grand, lovely to be here, thank you, lovely, aye, great. Now, yes, thanks for agreeing to appear, Professor McKenzie. First of all, perhaps you'd like to tell the viewers a bit about yourself, for those few out there who are unaware of you here in 3022. Yeah, oh, aye, no problem whatsoever, lad, aye, grand. Aye, well, I'm Professor McKenzie I'm the head of travelling time studies in, first part at third millennium, aye, and I have travelled back in time to 2022 it is currently, to the dominant timeline, to study humans in their, when they were the dominant species on planet Earth, because obviously, well, I mean, it's funny, innit? You don't want me to explain history at world, but because most of your viewers will probably be aware of it. But obviously, here in 2022, it's quite funny because humans are still believe themselves to be the most important species on planet. They are dominant at the moment, and yeah, it's fascinating to come back here and study them. Well, thank you for that, Professor McKenzie. You're welcome. Now, isn't there some inherent danger in travelling back from the future to study the human beings? Isn't there some concern that you may affect the dominant timeline by appearing here in Earth at this time at 2022? Thanks. That's a good question. Aye. Well, of course, you'll know that ever since introduction at time travel as an opportunity, people have been travelling back and forth. Humans and dogs and all sorts. Usually trying to either bring about a more utopian future, or in case of some, more dystopian future. There's some right funny folk out there, and so, the thing is, coming back to 2022, most people here and now, in this current dominant timeline, think that, I'm a human dressed up as a dog. In a silly dog costume. Well, of course, it is a silly dog costume, but underneath the dog costume, I am, of course, a dog, an evolved dog from the future. After the Armageddon Wars, of course, humans are no longer the dominant species, and they continue to regress. And we dogs, like my little friends here, we evolve, and become dominant species, and the world's a better place for it. Let's be honest. But yeah, back here in this day, of course, humans, they don't believe a word that we say. They just think we're promoting this silly band, robot radio, and they don't. I don't think we're a threat. Well, TIT's the Travelling Time Studies School, of which I am the head in the early millennia of number 3, we don't think it's a threat to further dystopian futures. There's a possibility that if humans took some of this seriously, they could actually prevent their own Armageddon, but it's highly doubtful. They're really not that bright, as we know. So, that's about it. Oh, well, thank you very much there, Professor McKenzie. And could you tell our watchers and listeners why you picked this particular point in time, and why you are indeed apparently studying an unknown band called Robot Radio? Well, that's a good question as well. I mean, obviously, whatever I say can change enormously depending on current dominant timeline. But let's say in the dominant timeline of the late second millennia, Robot Radio become a massive band. Unfortunately, for the band themselves, long after they've all died. But they become a massive band, following really from the robotic incorporated world domination companies, development of their domestic utility recreational talking intelligent incredible robot. And they used Dirty Robot, the first single by Robot Radio, as their advertising campaign, of course, which led to absolute massive success for the record company who bought the rights to the song. Unfortunately, obviously, the band themselves died in extreme poverty, like most people in the UK in the early second millennia, of course. But we mustn't stray into politics. But they're fascinating creatures, humans, and particularly these lot round here. In the early second millennia. Anyway, but of course, most of your viewers will know that, of course, there was some strange developments after that hit, and then, of course, their second single, Listen to the Radio, was also picked up by the people. And a religion developed around them. Listen to the Radio, of course, was seen as a cry to listen to Robot Radio, listen to the prophecies of Robot Radio. There were a whole culture and religion that developed around the band, believing that they were essentially four messiahs. And occasional other members, of course, the great teacher Den York, and Enda Mullen. He gets a mention as one of the prophets, but the Rob Rads, as they came to be known, set up an enormous cult. Yes, cult, I said. So they've got an enormous cult following, and obviously we're talking late second millennia. And quite radical people. They were called Rob Rads, Robot Radio Radicals, and they caused quite a lot of disruption towards the Armageddon Wars. But ultimately, they didn't really influence in the dominant timelines. Mankind's total, not total annihilation, but when they stopped becoming the dominant species, which of course has made it better for me and my friends here, as you can see. I think that's covered that, right? What else would you like to know, young man? Thanks for that very thorough answer, Professor McKenzie. We have a number of other questions. Are your dogs okay? Yeah. Aye, I think they are. Aye. I think they're all right. Yeah, I think so. Aye, they look comfortable, don't they? You're comfortable, boys. Aye. Lovely. Yeah, great. Aye. Okay, so perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about Dirty Robot, the song that led to be studied so much and was such an influence on people in the late second millennia. Aye, lad, if that's what you're interested in, I certainly can tell you a bit more about that. Dirty Robot, the lyrics were seen as, you know, absolute brilliance by some. You know, these lads were heralded as like Shakespeare, you know, who were really popular. In these times, he was seen as a bit of a genius. Of course, those who've travelled back realise he was a bit of a numpty. Well, funnily enough, these lads, Robot Radio, certainly aren't geniuses. I mean, they're not even, well, I mean, you know, for humans, they're not too bad, but they're not bright. They're not bright. Let's be honest. They're a bit dim. I think dim is probably the nicest word. Nice bunch, you know, nice bunch, but yeah, a bit dim. Anyway, by whatever circumstances it was, and some say perhaps they were influenced by time travellers who came back and had a bit of a whisper in their ears, you know, it's a possibility. We can't totally deny it, but yeah, there was a lot of insightful predictions and prophecies in that dirty robot. So, for example, they said, forget the frustrations of human relations, which of course predicted and prophesied the end of human relationships, and of course led to the significant undermining of the species and the significant undermining of the communities that the people lived in. You know, they stopped interacting with each other and they started, interacting with robots and all sorts of stuff, mostly online, you know, in a virtual world. So, you know, they didn't. Yeah, and these lads, you know, let's face it, simpletons, Robot Radio, predicted so much about the future that, yeah, they were heralded as, you know, Shakespeare-like geniuses, and, yeah, led to all sorts of, strange beliefs by people. And the second song, of course, Listen to the Radio, itself thought to be, by many academics like myself, a simple exploration of the desperation of human loneliness and their prevalence, their predilection, their preference for simple answers. So, you know, such as somebody saying to a lonely person, an isolated person, why don't you listen to the radio? Well, of course, that's no good, is it? You know, they needed, just as we do, they needed the company of other human beings, you know, strangely enough. But, yeah, it would at the time, we believe, those academics like myself, they believe it were a protest about the human condition, the increasing isolation of people and the desperation to be heard and to be listened to. Of course, as time went on, and in the late second millennium, you know, people started to believe that it were about. How would you say it? It was about listen to Robot Radio, listen to the prophecies of Robot Radio, and prevent human Armageddon and the apocalypse. So, you know, it gained a lot of what's the word? You know, well, you know, of course, the robot radicals, the believers, the cult people, you will be arguing me now, saying, you know, how could I possibly deny? They'll be calling me a heretic. They may be, you know, plotting me downfall. They may be sending assassins now to try and do me away. But, you know, the dominant timeline just says that they were misinterpreted and given more credence than they really truly deserved. But you've got to admit, they're good tunes. They're good tunes, you know, and worth a listen to. I think so. Worth a listen to. We still listen to them now, in the study group. You know, of course, there's a lot of bands from this particular period that we listen to a lot. You know, Flying Ant Day, Humdrum Express. But yeah, these lads, by somehow or other, obviously not as much influence as Flying Ant Day, but that's a whole other story. But they certainly had influence, you know, on the future, and that's what we're talking about, isn't it, today? Well, thank you very much, Professor McKenzie. That was very thorough. Let me just check with my editor if there's anything else we need to ask you. But for now, thank you very much, Professor McKenzie. If you'd like to take a break, there's some dog biscuits over there on the grass. All right, lovely. Thanks, lad. Thanks very much. That's great. Lovely, smashing.